Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some people seem to have all the luck when it comes to brain health and others struggle, even when they think they're doing everything right? Well, this new research dives deep into that question, suggesting that the answer might be much bigger than just what we eat or how much we sleep. This paper tackles a really important idea, that the world around us, the conditions we grow up in and live in, have a massive impact on our brain health. It's not just about our genes or our lifestyle. It is about the neighborhoods we live in, the schools we attend, and the jobs we have, or don't have. They call these things social determinants of health, or STIO for short. And they're arguing that neuroscience, the study of the brain, really needs to pay much closer attention to these social factors, to truly understand why some brains stay healthy and others don't. So, what exactly are these social determinants of health? Think of it as everything that influences our health that isn't directly a medical issue or something we choose to do, like smoking or eating junk food. It is where you are born, where you grow up, where you live, work, and age. The paper highlights that this concept has been around for a while, evolving from ideas of social medicine to understanding that things like nutrition, sanitation, and living conditions are hugely important for health, sometimes even more than medical care. In Canada, specific reports have really pushed this idea forward, emphasizing that things like income, education, and housing are crucial. What is really interesting is that the concept is moving beyond just individual factors to looking at bigger systems like structural racism and colonialism, how they create disadvantages that then affect people's health, including their brain health, across generations. The researchers make a strong case for why neuroscientists, the people who study our brains, really need to consider these social factors. They point out that if we ignore the social context, we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. A lot of the variation we see in brain health and behavior might not be random biological noise, but actually influenced by social conditions. For example, they mentioned that modeling neighborhood opportunities can explain more variance in brain structure and cognitive performance than just looking at individual factors alone. Plus, most brain studies are done on people from very similar backgrounds, often called weird Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. This means the findings might not apply to everyone, especially to the people who are the most affected by brain disorders. So, including STOP, who makes the research more relevant, more generalizable, and helps us move towards brain health equity for everyone. But it is not just a one-way street. The paper also shows how neuroscience can help us understand social determinants better. It can provide objective measures like brain imaging or stress hormone levels that can show us how social conditions affect the brain, going beyond just correlations. This can help us understand the specific biological pathways involved, identify new targets for interventions, and even understand why some individuals are more vulnerable or resilient to the effects of social disadvantage. To wrap their heads around all this complexity, the researchers propose a detailed framework. They talk about different levels of influence, from our genes and molecules all the way up to our social environments and broader societal structures. Think of it like an onion, with different layers affecting each other. They match up these levels with different research tools and methods. From genetic analysis to brain scans to social surveys, this multi-level approach is key because it recognizes that the brain doesn't exist in a vacuum, but is deeply connected to everything around it, from our immediate surroundings to global policies. The paper then dives into a critical review of several existing frameworks for thinking about social determinants of health. They look at frameworks from the World Health Organization, the Public Health Agency of Canada, and others. Each has its strengths. Some are good at describing different factors, others at showing how they connect, and some are designed specifically for harmonizing data across big studies. The paper argues that no single framework is perfect for neuroscience research. Instead, they suggest we need to combine the best parts of different frameworks to get a comprehensive picture. What they've developed is called the Cultural Ecosocial Framework. This framework is designed to be integrative. It emphasizes that social determinants aren't just separate boxes to check off, but are part of dynamic systems where our biology, psychology, relationships, and social structures all interact and influence each other. They highlight that culture plays a huge role in how we experience these social conditions and how they affect us biologically. It is like the lens through which we see and react to the world. This approach encourages thinking about how all these factors work together, not just in isolated parts. So how do we actually measure these things? The paper provides a fantastic toolkit organizing social determinants into core domains like socioeconomic status, early life adversity, discrimination, social support, food security, housing, healthcare access, neighborhood environment, cultural factors, and psychological stress. For each domain, they list key constructs and suggest validated measures, many of which are Canadian-specific. They even mention the Spark tool, which is a practical way to screen for social needs in primary care settings, something that can be really useful for research too. This practical toolkit is crucial because it gives researchers concrete ways to collect data on these often overlooked factors. Putting this into practice throughout the research process is also key. The paper walks through how to plan and design studies with DOA in mind. This includes building interdisciplinary teams, engaging with communities from the start, and making sure the samples reflect the diversity of the population, not just a narrow group. They stress the importance of longitudinal studies. Collecting data over time and looking at how early life experiences can shape brain development. They also discuss data collection, emphasizing the need to balance getting comprehensive information with not overburdening participants. Linking clinical data, like the Spark screenings, with neuroscience research is also highlighted as a powerful way to gather large-scale data. When it comes to analyzing the data, the paper advocates for advanced statistical methods. They talk about multi-level modeling, which helps understand how factors at different levels, like individual experiences and neighborhood conditions, influence brain health. Mediation analysis is mentioned, which helps us understand the step biological pathways connecting social factors to brain outcomes. They also suggest looking at how social determinants might interact with each other or with biological factors, like genes, to influence vulnerability or resilience. The goal is to move beyond simple correlations and truly understand the complex systems at play. Of course, all this research has ethical considerations. The paper outlines a tiered ethics framework starting with basic obligations like informed consent and privacy. Then it moves to equity-informed obligations, where researchers need to be mindful of structural inequalities and ensure fair representation. Finally, there are justice-oriented obligations pushing for transformative social change and community self-determination, especially when working with indigenous communities, emphasizing principles like OCAP. This tiered approach ensures that integrating ESTO into research is done responsibly and ethically, aiming to actually help the communities involved. To sum it all up, the paper provides a really clear set of best practices. It's about treating social determinants not as mere background noise, but as active forces shaping our brains. It's about using a combination of frameworks to understand the bigger picture, designing studies that are inclusive and capture a wide range of experiences, and using robust analytical methods to uncover the complex relationships between our social world and our brain health. Importantly, it stresses that when communicating findings, especially about differences between groups, we must emphasize brain plasticity and the fact that social conditions can be changed, avoiding the trap of biological determinism. In my opinion, this is a groundbreaking paper. It's like a roadmap for a whole new way of doing brain research, one that's more inclusive, more relevant, and ultimately more likely to lead to real improvements in brain health for everyone. The biggest strength is its comprehensive nature, bridging the gap between complex social theory and practical neuroscience measurement. It really pushes the field to recognize that the brain is shaped by the entire ecosystem a person lives in, not just what happens inside their skull. One limitation which the authors are upfront about is the sheer complexity of measuring and analyzing all these interconnected factors. It requires interdisciplinary teams and sophisticated methods, which can be a challenge for individual research groups. But the framework they provide and the toolkit it includes helps make this more accessible. What does this mean for us? It means that things like poverty, housing insecurity, and discrimination aren't just social problems. They are direct threats to our brain health. It also means that solutions need to be multifaceted, addressing not just individual behaviors but also the structural conditions that influence them. Investing in better housing, education, and reducing systemic inequities could have profound positive impacts on brain health across the population. Future research could really build on this by developing even more integrated methods for measuring and analyzing these complex social biological interactions. We also need more studies that actively involve communities in shaping the research questions and interpreting the findings, truly practicing what the paper preaches about community engagement and justice. This is the kind of research that can truly change how we think about and care for our brains. What are your thoughts on how social factors influence your own well-being, or the well-being of your community? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more insightful science, and share it with anyone who wants to understand the fascinating connection between our lives and our minds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.